Let's talk about CSST programs. Forms on the menu. Programs form brings up the list of programs on the first page. Program in CSST is simply some service that your agency offers on an organized basis, and you can put any name that you like in there. When you've done that, they will show up in this list on the first page, alphabetized by program name or whatever column header you click in this list. Once you've picked one here, you can go to the second page, which will give you details about that program. And there's a number of things you can put in here. The main one that you're concerned with is the program name, and the main one that CSST itself is concerned with is the program name. The rest of the information on this page, with the exception of the logic model assignments, is not used in too many ways in other places in CSST. You can show what agencies the program is available from, what staff members are assigned to it, and that does create linkages that can be used in reporting and certain other aspects. One thing you'll notice in particular is that there's nothing about dates here. So a program name, once you've put it in, is just that. It's a program name. Participation records in CSST, and we define that word specifically as it's used in CSST and not necessarily as it's used more widely in the English language, relates to a record that a client has participated in a program name as you see it here on this page. In other words, without any dates associated with it, just a generic program name. The client has had some connection with that program at some point in their career, so to speak, at some point in their dates of tracking by CSST. Now that record does have a date. It's given a date when it's created. And that date is editable if you go to the right place to do it, but in general that date's not terribly important. So how do we get the more complex arrangement of connection between clients and programs that does encompass dates? Well, that involves creating a scheduled instance of a program. So if you have a program daycare, and just as an example here, when we go to the program details page, we see on this details page there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different listings for that program daycare. And that can be true of any program name that you put in. Now the difference on this page now is that we're talking about, and we look at we pick a record in the list, and then the row of edit controls underneath the list will give you the ability to change each of the columns in that, each of the field values in that record across the bottom of the page. So what do we have there? Well, we have a start date, we have an end date, we have a status, we have a provider and a location, and all of those things can be different for each individual program record here. So here we have daycare that started on 10/7/2002 and ended on November 7th of 2003, and it was provided by the American Academy, and the location was other. And then there's other instances of the program that have different start and end dates, different providers, different locations. So you can have as many of these as you like. You can have a program that has a start and end date that are only a week apart. Or 6 weeks apart for something like computer training programs or something of that nature. More commonly, programs will run for a year. That may be a calendar year, it may be a fiscal year, or it could be something else entirely. Your choice of start and end dates is completely up to you, and you put those in to fit what you need in terms of being able to track user enrollment now as opposed to participation in those programs. So an enrollment record for a client will be an enrollment in a specified instance of a particular program, and that program of course has its own start and end date, but the client's enrollment record will also have separate start and end dates. In other words, the program may start January 1st, the client doesn't enroll until February 15th. That's fine. You can show that the client started in that program on February 15th and withdrew from that program on February 17th, if that's appropriate. And then you can have another enrollment record for the same program that starts, in March and ends in April or whatever the dates may be. So you could have multiple enrollment records for a client in a particular scheduled instance of the program. Adding a program is simply a matter of clicking the plus button on the toolbar. It'll take you automatically to the second page and highlight the new program in the program name window, so you can put in some program there. Let's just say utility assistance. And then we can specify all these other pieces of general information about the program, none of which are terribly important, with a possible exception, depending on how you want to use it, of the logic model assignment. So in the logic model assignments, you can specify however many or whichever ones, and let's say you energy assistance in this case makes some reasonably good sense. For utility assistance. So we now have a logic model associated with that program. We do not yet have a scheduled instance of that program. But if we were to go to the clients form, which we could do here, clients, and we go to the client details page, we will see in the list of programs in this list this utility assistance, and I see it's listed twice, meaning that we had actually already had a program of that name in there. Now we've got a program in there twice by that name since I just added one. But it'll be listed here, and you can drag and drop and drop it over here in the program participation, and that creates a participation record in that program for that client. We still have not done anything that provides an enrollment record. So let's go back to programs. We've got our utility assistance. We come over to the program details page, type in U to jump down to the utility assistance, and we find there aren't any. Well, disregarding the fact that we actually had a program of that name in there previously, it simply means that we have not created a program instance for utility assistance yet. How do you do that? Well, you click the universal add button, the green plus button on the toolbar. It will give you a new record, and you notice that the record comes in at the top of the list. The program name is empty, the classification is empty, the start date is filled in by default as today's date. The status is set as active, and the provider will be a specified one of the agencies in your agencies form that you've specified with a system constant setting. So it will default to whatever you've specified there. But you have to give it, first of all, in this drop-down list at the bottom, you have to give that program, you have to specify which program you're referring to. So if we open this up, type in UT, it'll jump down to our utility assistance, and we know that we have two of them in here now, so we'll pick the second one, which is probably the one we just put in. And we now have a scheduled instance with a start date of today, which is August 1st. I can change that date to anything I want. It could be, August 1st of 1947 if you're so inclined. Then you can put in an end date, and that's not required. You can leave it open-ended if you choose to do so. But let's put in an end date of the end of this year. And then the status will by default be active, but it can be any one of these other things, and you can change this manually later, and you can create filters based on that status if you're so inclined. The provider will be by default, again, whatever agency we've specified in the system constant setting, but we can change that to anything. And it can be, by default, it'll come up as a list of agencies, and you can choose from your list of agencies, but it can be anything else. It could be organizations, staff members, volunteers, outside organization contacts like doctors or dentists or nurses or whatever. So you can put anything you want in here. Let's go back to agencies, change it to something different. Let's say Sussex Center, say OK. So we now have a utility assistance program that started today, ends at the end of the year. The provider is Sussex Center. The one other thing that we have not specified yet about this is the location, and this drop-down list is in fact limited to just a list of agencies from the agencies form. So you choose what the location is. Presumably, if the provider is something, and then the location is one of your agencies, then the location would presumably be the same, but it doesn't have to be. Those can be two separate items, and you can do filtering based on that. So now we have a scheduled instance for utility assistance. What that does for us then is if we go to one of the forms, and there are many, home energy assistance, housing counseling, Head Start, appointments, service delivery, weatherization, all have drop-down lists of scheduled instances of programs that we just generically refer to as associated programs. So if we open up the service delivery form and look at the associated program drop-down on this page, you'll see a list of scheduled instances from that third page of the programs form that we were just on, of all the scheduled instances of programs that are listed there, depending on the filter that's set on this list. And the filter is set by this small button that says, by default here right now, it's set on filter, which means that a customized filter has been applied. If we click that button, it'll cycle through 5 years, meaning every program that has a start date within the last 5 years, then through 2 years, meaning the same thing, but only over 2 years. Click it again, it goes to all, and just as an illustration now, when we open this up and type in U here, we will see utility assistance, Sussex Center, starting today's date, August 1st, 2013, that we just put in. So you can assign that program from the associated program drop-down list. And all of the other similar drop-down lists on other forms work exactly the same way.